We're going to talk about ways to transfer heat today. There's three different ways to transfer heat, and the first of which is conduction. Conduction is the process by which energy is transferred by heat through a material between 2 points at different temperatures. In other words, we have a hot object and a cold object. If they touch each other, heat will transfer between them. So let's say that we have two objects, one at 0 degrees Celsius and another object at 20 degrees Celsius. And we connect them with, let's say, a metal pipe. So heat flows from the hotter object to the colder object. Now, depending on what this object is made out of, it's made out of a metal, the heat will transfer rather quickly. If it's made out of a non-metal, something like, let's say, wood, heat will not transfer as quickly as it does if it's made out of metal. The reason metals are excellent conductors is because their valence electrons are freer to move than in a lot of other types of bonding. And so the heat will transfer a lot faster because of the ability for the electrons to move more readily. What we call things like wood, carbon, things that are not metals, we call them insulators. Now, an example of a form of conduction is when we cook food on a pan. So if we take an element, this hot element here, and we place on it our pot or a pan, and place the food in that pan, the heat will transfer through this metal pan into our food. However, the handle, which is usually made out of a plastic, or maybe if it's an older pan, it will be made out of a wood. Regardless, this handle is made out of an insulator. And so the heat will not travel through the handle, and so we will not get burnt. Another example is that on a cold day, a lot of times what people do is they make a cup of hot chocolate. And so you have to wait for that hot chocolate to cool down. And while you do so, a lot of times you just hold on to the outside cup, outside mug. And so the heat travels through the mug itself from the hot chocolate into your hands. And so that is another example of conduction, that heat travels through an object. The second method of heat transfer is convection. Convection involves the displacement of cold matter by hot matter. In other words, it's a circulation of a fluid. We say that hot air rises. And so as the air rises up, it's going to displace the colder air at the top of the room and push it back down so it too can be heated. If we go back here, air, we said, is an excellent insulator. So if we have a wall cavity here, we have our inside and our outside air. If we put air in this wall cavity, it's an excellent insulator to prevent heat from going from the inside to the outside on a cold day. So again, the inside temperature is warmer than the outside temperature. It prevents the heat from flowing to the colder temperature. The problem is that air will circulate, and the circulation of air we call convection. And the circulation of air will speed up the process. It's not a perfect insulator, and the circulation of air will speed up the process, allowing the heat to transfer to the outside a lot faster. So what we do is we use insulation. And insulation is typically just air. However, it's just a fluffy material, and the material itself prevents the air from circulating and therefore speeding up the process of transferring the heat to the outside. So we will again section this off with the insulation, not allowing it to circulate. Some examples of when we actually use convection is with a ceiling fan. In the wintertime, you will put your ceiling fans in reverse, and it'll actually push the warm air down, heating the bottom of the room as well as the top. So that would be an example. Also, if you boil water in a kettle, you boil the water so you heat up the bottom section of the water. So maybe you can boil it in a pan of some sort. So you're heating up the bottom section, and then the water circulates, which heats it all over. Any kind of heating for a house, let's say a radiator. You heat up the section of air right near the radiator or baseboard, and then the air is going to circulate throughout the room, heating up the entire room. The last method of heat transfer is through radiation. We a lot of times think radiation is all bad, but it's not necessarily the case. Any kind of electromagnetic wave is a form of radiation. So light is a form of radiation, radio waves is a form of radiation, ultraviolet rays, infrared, we have gamma rays, they're all forms of radiation. When an object absorbs radiation, the particles increase in their speed, and therefore their temperature goes up as well. Likewise, if an object emits radiation, the particles slow down and they will decrease in temperature. Some examples of methods that we use to heat objects through radiation is microwave ovens. What happens is the microwaves that are produced are going to speed up the water particles within the food. And as the water particles speed up, they are going to increase in temperature and cook the food. Radiation from the sun warming up a greenhouse is another example of radiation. If you wear a black shirt, you will actually absorb more radiation than if you wear a white shirt. That's why we feel hotter when we wear dark clothing outside than if we wear lighter clothing outside. So again, 3 methods of heat transfer: conduction, which is 2 objects of different temperatures touching each other; convection, which is a circulation of a fluid; and radiation, being absorbed or emitted, will either heat things up or cool them down.